I suppose, constraints, but then also opportunities when, like, in the space of introducing new technology, artificial intelligence into a business? I'm talking, I suppose, mostly about adoption. Like, what do you see as the best way that businesses can adopt these new technologies so that they embracing it correctly and efficiently?
I think the first step you have to have is this growth mindset and this mindset of curiosity. And because I think you have two types of entrepreneurs. You've got ones that made the brave step to go out there themselves, but once they've got it working, then it's, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Roland, welcome to the SiteShed podcast.
Awesome. Nice to be here. Thanks, Matt.
It's funny, I mentioned to you offline, sort of worlds collided. I was at an event in Fiji with the Master Plumbers Association, and I was doing a talk on some AI-related concepts that we're sort of deploying and seeing in the trade space on the forefront of like lead nurturing and things like that. And one of the guys at the event was, "Oh, we just got back from so and so this event in the US, and we saw this amazing talk from the guys at Housecall Pro." And I was like, right. Then you guys popped up on my radar back then, and then literally like a couple of months later, your booking agent reached out and said, "Oh, do you guys want to have interested in having on the show?" And I'm like, "Yes, absolutely, let's do it." So
that's cool. No, I'm glad we get a chance to connect. There's definitely a lot happening in the AI space, and it's moving fast, and it's definitely fun to talk about.
How do you define Housecall Pro?
Yeah, Housecall Pro is, our mission is to champion all of our pros to success, and we do that through software, do that through different solutions. But really, we're this all-in place where a pro can come to grow their business. And so, on average, I think they grow at least 30% their first year and kind of continue to grow there on after. It's because, they're really systematizing and building processes and measuring the things they're working on. And so we help them grow. And when they grow, we grow. But the official categorization is like field service management. But I think, we do so much more than that as well. So
we would call that, I suppose over here, tend to call that job management.
Job management. Yeah. Job management. Yeah.
And you guys are at the moment exclusively North America, and you were saying offline.
So we focus on the US and Canadian markets. We've got probably close to 45,000 or so different companies that cover 98 or 99% of all zips in the United States, and they service 1 in 4 homes in the United States. So the coverage across that and all the trades that we have, I'd say we were particularly focused on a lot of the skilled trades that require licenses. So think HVAC, plumbing, electrical. But then we also have 55 other different types of trades, that we service, and also trades that aren't even trades. So, we have mobile vets, we have, mobile groomers and all kinds of stuff. But we really focus on, kind of the skilled trades, residential or light commercial. We kind of stay away from the commercial side for now. But that's our market.
So tell me, how did you end up here?
Yeah. That's a good question. How did I end up here? So my co-founders and I started the company back 12 years ago or so now. And we were working at another big tech company, and we thought, hey, wouldn't it be neat if you could book a plumber through an app? And that was in the days of Uber, before Uber had all kinds of random drivers. They were all, used to be, town cars, black town cars. And so really we started off as that. And after we've been doing that for a little bit, we noticed that on the pro side, like Uber, there's the rider and the driver. And what we were building, there was the homeowner and the pro. On the pro side, there were no tools for the pro. And so in 2015, we launched Housecall Pro officially and focused solely on building the best tools to empower our pros to be able to grow their businesses. And so that's kind of where we came from.
Did you guys
solely focus on
out of the trades?
I painted homes during college to pay for college. One of my other co-founders, his dad was a painter, so he grew up with that. But it wasn't as if we were tradespeople ourselves and we're like, we're going to go build the software. No, we're nerds and geeks and engineers at heart, and we just saw like a big opportunity here, and we just knew that we could beat everybody at building out this platform. So
Sure.
here we are, a decade later, still at it. Championing our pros of success.
Amazing. So good. And so we're talking today about some of the evolutions within the artificial intelligence space, which is a pretty hot topic right now. And we're seeing, it's just moving so quickly. I'm super keen to hear some of the things that you guys, are doing in that space and some of the trends that you might see emerging and where you think some of these opportunities lie within that space for home service businesses.
I think, look, the reality is that AI is going to severely impact sitting jobs. And it's going to also really help standing jobs stand out. And what I mean by that is, there's a lot of just knowledge work that AI is particularly very good at. And so, these next just coming years, it's moving really fast, but, using that within your business, or in Housecall Pro's case, we're building out AI team members so that our pros can do the stuff that they do best, which is troubleshooting, turning the wrench, interfacing with the customer face to face, shaking hands, doing the trade, versus having to send invoices late at night, versus having to follow up after voicemails that they missed, versus having to send out email campaigns to try to get, jobs on the calendar. So I think there's a really clear line between those standing jobs and those sitting jobs, until, of course, Elon's robots start crawling into attics and all that kind of stuff that you see on Black Mirror. But if you ever watched that show on Netflix, but I think we're still a little far away from that. And I think, where we stand is, can we augment our pros in such a way that they can really focus on the growth levers to their business versus the monotonous, mundane, wish you had an intern you could go delegate this stuff to.
Sure.
Yeah.
I guess some of the like we're like testament to that is like as a digital agency, we see a lot of our clients are caught up, I suppose, in areas of their business where their time is probably not best spent from a marketing perspective, like in the space of triage leads and all these kind of things. So, there's some cool AI that we can deploy now for those businesses that can help streamline, speed to lead issues and, all those kind of things. They're sort of, I guess, some of the more obvious solutions that are the from a marketing perspective. But then I'm sure there's so many other things that, like you say, for sitting jobs that can help streamline, optimize, and improve efficiency across various areas of the business. Within like your experience, and maybe even within your software, where are some of the areas that you guys are sort of leaning in on the AI side to help improve things?
Sure. So the way that we think about it is we think about them as AI team members versus like the all-knowing Jarvis. So if you're into Marvel and comics and Iron Man and like this, all-knowing AI that can do all of the things, we actually think there's specific team members, AI team members, that are well suited to particular tasks. And in the nerdy world, we call them agents. But the reality is these are team members, and these are team members that you can hire into your business, and they're going to do specific tasks. So I would say two of the really popular ones, especially right now, is our CSR AI, as well as our analyst AI. And so those two serve two different tasks. But on the CSR front, it's, can you capture after hours or during business hours people that are calling your business when you're out there doing the work, and or your human is drowning in phone calls because there's a heat wave and all of a sudden, you got multiple calls coming in, and that those people are calling trying to find a booking, and they're just going to hang up on you and go call the next. So AI, CSRs really help with that piece. And they know your business, and they know your business because it's built inside a Housecall Pro, and they know where the open slots are, and they know which technician can do which job. and they can know your pricing because the price book's in there. So all of these aspects are already inside of Housecall Pro. So why can't we build another layer there that can help give you an AI team member that doesn't call in sick, doesn't screw up the script, doesn't say things that shouldn't be, doesn't say you service areas that you can't, because maybe you chose some outsourced call center. As a business, it's tough enough to hire, and trying to staff something 24/7, unless you're of a certain size, you just can't do it. It doesn't make sense. It's not worth it. The ROI isn't there. But with our CSR AI, it is, $1 a minute. Why not? And if you get calls, great. And if you don't, that's okay too. It's just variable. The second one I mentioned, analyst AI, is a great one. A lot of our pros, they just need access to data quick, but it's in the form of a question. So right now, before analyst AI, you'd have to go in, run a report, do a pivot on a pivot, and go sort this by leads, by month, by service type, by technician. You have to drill to get to the answer. Or you can just ask analyst AI, hey, how much do I have to pay Matt for all the water heaters he installed in the month of January?
Yeah,
Boom. Wow. Here it is. And that's just a piece of information I'm looking for. Why? Because I'm using Housecall Pro payroll, and I just want to input a number and click pay, and ship it off. But if you're not using that, you're going to have to sit there and learn how to dig into those reports, configure the reports, and all the other components, which you can do. But analyst AI just helps kind of cut through that noise. And I feel like, our pros aren't business analysts. They don't need to go hey, am I just slow this month, or is this seasonally typical? Am I within the same range? Analyst AI can answer that for you versus man, am I normally slow? Let me pull up my last year's reports and try to dig in. And no. We can do the calculations for you on the fly with analyst AI.
So when you guys develop these extensions of, products related, within the software that, can solve problems, does that form some sort of a roadmap for you? Is it something that people upvote on, or do you just let's just do this?
Sure.
Bitch.
Yeah, so we call them pro votes. And so one of the things that makes Housecall Pro unique is we've got a really thriving Facebook community. We've got several different communities, but our pros can come in there, or via our blue chat bubble, or via phone. They can kind of be hey, I wish the software could do X, or I wish it could do Y. And so those things come into our product managers, which look through all of them, which there's tens of thousands of votes, and they kind of start to categorize and bucket them into the different things that our pros are looking to solve. And then we just go take a look at what tools do we have that we can help them accomplish those goals. Because if our pros grow, we grow. And so those incentives are really well aligned, and we sift through those pro votes for ideas. And if there's a lot of people asking for a certain thing, it's something that we should build. And so that's where we've done that now for the last decade. And that's where we've ended up. Where we've ended up is just listening to our pros, because they've got needs, and they'll say hey, is there any way you can I want to go on vacation, or I want to take the weekend off. Can you just handle all these calls for me? Yeah, sure. Now we have CSR AI. Coach AI is a new AI we have as well. You can ask Coach AI, hey, is my average job ticket pretty good? Well, what's interesting about Housecall Pro is we've got the data set across 100 million plus jobs. And so when you ask that question, you're not just asking your buddy, the plumber in the town, 3 towns over, or some small data set. This is a massive data set for people in your area, in your climate region, by your size, because smaller companies charge different than larger companies do. And Coach AI will give you insights. And so they'll tell you, and it'll also tell you what you can do to increase it, because we know what tools our pros that have higher ticket averages use to get there. And so those things are just extra things that normally, our pros would have to, go hire a guru or a coach for. And even them, they just have a limited data set. They might be in the industry for 20, 30 years, but maybe they've worked with a couple hundred companies. This is based on tens of thousands and hundreds of millions of jobs. And it's real time. It's not what did someone do 20 years ago when they had their plumbing business or something.
Yeah, interesting. And so I suppose in the interest of the roadmap conversation, what do you see as the things that are going to be emerging, and what's next on the radar for you guys in terms of like that whole AI conversation?
Yeah, look, I think in general, AI is still really nascent, so the roadmap is really infinite. But really, what are the things that are standing jobs that our pros shouldn't spend their time doing, and how can we enable them to focus on the things that will really, move the needle for their business, whether it's,
Counting,
going out
bookkeeping.
there and talking to associations and building new relationships with general contractors, or, getting out there with realtors or local BNI groups, and maybe not even being out there doing the trade itself, but like establishing those new growth levers for their business.
Mhm.
Working with marketing agencies like yourselves, like making sure that you guys have all the information you need to be able to run the right ads to get them the right types of clients, really focusing on those. So I think AI right now is in its infancy. I'd say it's probably smarter than a toddler. It's probably like, what we call sort of elementary school level. At a certain point, they're going to become like teenager level, to where, like, you would pay real money to hire them, and at a point after that, they'll be, college postdoc, super smart, that you can bring in your business. So AI is only going to become more capable
Yeah.
of answering a wider set of questions with increased accuracy. And so our roadmap, the more we can help our pros grow, we want them to have Housecall Pro as their secret weapon. And, if you're not using Housecall Pro, you're going to not just fall behind because, sure, a customer can pay online with a credit card. That's cool. We offer that. But like, book online. Okay, that's interesting. Or schedule things on my way text. Those things are becoming de facto.
Mm.
Um, and so this is the next level. And you get to learn and leverage Housecall Pro's proprietary data set to help you. That
Yeah.
sounds like, well, what does that even mean? But you're not just out there alone. You get access to all
Aggregate
kinds
data.
of data
Yeah.
aggregated that can help you learn, which is
Mm.
where the true value comes in. Same thing for marketing agencies. You have
100%.
lots of clients. You're seeing CPCs, CPLs all across the space, and it changes by season, by industry.
Yeah.
You've got access to so much. And so, if could I go try to figure that out on my own? Sure, I could try, but I'm not going to have all those other data points that you guys have, right? That you leverage to deliver your end clients better results. Which is why I'd pick you over trying to figure it out myself, just because I watched some marketing ads or videos on YouTube or something, right? And I think I'm an expert now. Not a good idea.
It's interesting, isn't it? Like, when we deal with like new businesses that are like seemingly, start up within a couple of years of starting, that kind of thing. And I sometimes laugh at how easy they have it in the space of like the software that's available now just to streamline things that was such a freaking punish back in the day. Like even like bookkeeping, bookkeeping software, QuickBooks, and like just things like that, which is, it's like, as you said before, like it's kind of taken for granted now. Even email, right? Like your Google
Yeah.
Workspace and your, Office 365, like all these tools that are available. Where back in the day, you're dealing with like server-based emails that at best got it right, like stayed up for 4 days out of the five. Like it was always crashing and it was just a nightmare. And now it's kind of all taken for granted. And I think that's kind of like in the space of evolution, that's kind of where we're heading here. Like we were saying before, like it's kind of an adaptation on these tools now,
Yeah.
using implementation and AI and integrating different tools and softwares and technologies and things like that. And it's sort of like normal today is like space age 5 years ago.
Totally. Yeah, and I think like that's why it's even more important to pick your partners wisely in your business, because you want to be growing also with them, rather than like having to switch and find another one and find another one, and just like you waste so much time on doing that. And so really you have to make sure you pick the partner that's in it for the long run, but also has, I tell people all the time, if you're looking at field service management software, go to LinkedIn, figure out how many employees work there. What
Yeah.
percentage of the employees are engineers? It's an easy query on LinkedIn. But then you can see like, oh wow, which ones are really innovating out there? Because hard things take people still to solve and to go build. And if you're going to go partner with one of them, go take a look at just some of those hard facts. Like there may be some flashy new thing with just one or two employees, and it's cool. But hard things take real money to solve, and real money to solve. So keep those things into consideration.
Roland, what do you see as some of the, I suppose, constraints, but then also opportunities when, like, in the space of introducing new technology, artificial intelligence into a business? Like, I'm talking, I suppose, mostly about adoption. Like, what do you see as the best way that businesses can adopt these new technologies so that they are embracing it correctly and efficiently?
It's a great question. I think the first step you have to have is this growth mindset and this mindset of curiosity. And because I think you have two types of entrepreneurs. You've got ones that made the brave step to go out there themselves, but once they've got it working, then it's if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah, right.
And you can run a business that way, and you can run a pretty successful business that way, and that might be all right, for quite some time, especially in the home services where there's so much demand, for skilled labor. And then I'd say the second type of entrepreneur is like, I know nothing, and I always know nothing. And when I feel like I know something, I know nothing. I'm always learning and always trying new things and seeing what's out there. I think when it comes to AI, a lot of people might be a little apprehensive sometimes when they're like, I don't know, how will people react to talking to an AI? Are they going to be put off or not? But what it comes down to is like, are you willing to find out?
Mm.
And rather than like listening to someone else, do you just want to go try it and see what happens? There
Mhm.
really isn't any harm other than, I don't know, if you choose some vendor that isn't good at what they do, the AI freaks out on the customer. Who knows? But like the reality is like if you have the right partners, stay curious, always learn, because there is no failure. There's only failure to learn. And if you adopt that right mindset, you're going to stay ahead of a lot of other folks out there,
Yeah.
just because of that. And so that's my number one piece of advice is just don't be afraid. Be unembarrassable. It's not an official word, but I say it all the time. And if you could do that, you'll be all right, especially in this day of age when it comes to adopting AI tools. You don't have to do it all at once. You can take a little bite here, a little nibble there, try this there. Don't feel like you have to do all of it all at once. Also, don't try to go build it all yourself because you can't compete in the same way that I can probably learn how to do some plumbing stuff on YouTube, but like, am I going to go do it? No, I'm going to go to where I can produce the most amount of value so I can find the person that actually knows how to do the work and do it really well to do that in my house.
Sure.
And so same thing applies here, you know, go use it in your personal life. I think that's a great tip too.
Mm.
Use ChatGPT to answer questions about whatever you want. Take a picture of the take a picture of the wine selection at your favorite local restaurant, and then have it tell you which is the best value wine here. Taste divided
Mm.
by dollars. Like just use it in for fun ways, because it'll help kind of unlock your mind on what's possible, and it'll make you really believe like, oh, maybe there's some true use to this. All those things power what is underneath the real AI.
I like that. I mean, that whole conversation around it, the it ain't broke, don't fix it, I think is, it can be twofold. It can be as a result of um, stubbornness, or like just like literally, this is working, why would we look for something else? Or it can also be as a result of just genuinely not knowing what you don't know. And I mean, this podcast kind of exists to sort of cast a bit of a, I mean, any podcast, I suppose, really exists to sort of open people's eyes to opportunities beyond perhaps what they're currently doing, which I think is extremely powerful. That I know even my experience from back in the day when I was a plumber, I went from doing my apprenticeship in a company where, and this sort of gives you a bit of insight as to how old I am, but we would write out the invoices on a carbon copy book, and you would tear one off and you would give it to the customer. You'd tear another one off and you'd give it to the office lady. And then you would just, conceptually, you just expect that you're going to spend the next, 3 months trying to get paid off this person. And that was just the way it was. And whereas then I went and worked for another company, and all of a sudden they've got these, back then it was these huge like bank machines with, you could take a payment which costs you like $200 a month to rent off the bank or something, but still you get paid on site. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. Like now there's no more chasing debt. And so like I think just getting exposed to different ideas and concepts is also extremely powerful. And I guess that's why these podcasts, events, books, networking, different, just getting getting insight as to how people do things is so powerful in the space of, evolving what
Yeah.
you do.
Well, I think anything, when you're out there building a business, you want to create leverage. And a lot of people will be very surprised when the locksmith comes and unlocks your door in like 1 minute, bumps it in 1 minute, and
I
then they
know.
give you $100 bill, and you're like, oh my God, they just made $100 in 1 minute. But what you're actually paying for is that time and knowledge of them doing 10,000 locks over the course of their lifetime to be able to do that thing. And so in the same way that, there's just leverage in your own knowledge set on things that you've done, AI just introduces another massive lever and it just unlocks the mind. And so I think that's where you can just add a whole bunch of superpowers on top of what you already know. And you don't have to be the master at all the things. I love the scene in The Matrix. Hopefully everyone's watched it that's listening to this.
Not
But
today.
you just download the book on how to fly the helicopter. Boom. And now you know how to fly the helicopter. And it's like you can use AI in so many ways, and you don't have to be a business analyst. You don't have to be an accountant. You don't have to be a lawyer to draft up terms and conditions. Asterisk, have it verified by a lawyer or something, right? But like, you can get so far with so little these days, where what you're saying is true. Like back when you were over there doing triplicate paper forms and those things, to what's available now is just like, it's so wild and it changes so quick. And how do you stay up to speed? Just adopt a curious mindset, growth mindset, and you'll be all right.
I was going to ask you, like, in your experience, where the right, like, if there's like in your like a priority sort of list in the space of what to embrace in for a typical business. But I guess the answer is most likely going to be wherever your time's not being currently best spent. An example of that is a lot of the clients that we would both no doubt work with, and the listeners and viewers
Mm-hmm.
out there. There's this whole, for years I've been seeing this, especially business coaches, they sort of promote, get off the tools and like all these kind of ideas where, get off the tools, get in the office. And I think a lot of guys out there freak out at the fact that their skill set is out on site, and they're good at managing guys, and they're good at building relationships with customers, and all of a sudden they've got some coach telling them, no, you should get away from doing that, and you should start doing your invoicing and bookkeeping and all that kind of bullshit. And I think time spent where time is best invested, like in the space of what you're good at. And there are tools out there, and there are people, and the same principle with hiring, right? It's like, well, just hire to your weaknesses and implement tools and software that can help you do the things that is not within your best interest.
Yeah, I think the most practical framework that I try to describe to pros is just like, write down all the things you do in any given day. Just take an audit, just take a log, and then put that in one column, and create another column, and just write down what's the hourly rate you'd pay someone to do this for you. Then click sort high to low, and start figuring out how much time you're spending on the lowest value tasks, and start automating those things away. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, the most leverage is created by the things that you value the most. And so, automation, AI, all these things isn't necessarily about doing less work. It's about doing more of what actually matters and what drives the needle. And I think a lot of people don't take stock of those time wasters, because all those time wasters, or things where you're working on things that are lower value, is a tax on your future self, because time compounds when you're working on the right things. And so the best time to start really is yesterday. The next best time is now. And so you're hopefully hearing this, and go run that. Just time audit. Just take your day, write down what you did. What would you have paid someone? Start there. And that's how I'd answer your question on like, well, where would you start? Or how do you even start to think about it? Because it's probably the most basic, easy way to conceptualize where you get the most leverage from. And so if you can focus on those things, that's when you win. And that's when I think about AI and automation. People are like, well, what should you adopt first and whatever? It's like, well, where are you struggling? For a lot of pros, the first thing is like, oh my God, I'm so busy, I can't even answer the phone. I know I'm losing money, I'm losing jobs. And they're like, but should I hire another person to work with me? But the first thing is make sure you're not missing any of the opportunities so you can become booked so full you can do one of two things. One is double your prices, so you just effectively give yourself a raise, and half the people will stop calling you because you're too expensive, or stick with the same rate, but that's enough to go fund someone else, your new protege, a new apprentice, a new helper, whatever it is, to help you accomplish more jobs. And if it takes simply answering the phone more often or 100% of the time, go focus on that piece. What is it? Even if you pay a human to do it. This day and age, I can't recommend that, but that's how I think about it.
Yeah, but there's always going to be things, I suppose. Well, maybe not always, but at the moment, certainly, there's things that I see humans doing better.
Sure.
That remains for a while. And I'll give you like a sort of an example, like in the space of what we see of how to, in line with what you're saying, with like a time and energy audit, but then also doing it for like a forecasted version of where you ideally would like to be, because this is really important for us as an agency, when we're like, okay, well, we want to design a solution to help you get to your outcome. We don't want to design a solution for where you're currently at, because that's where you're currently at. And so we need to make sure that we're accounting for things like recruitment and, implementing different technology, increasing ad spend, like all these kind of things as part of that journey. And, very often when we go through the org chart exercise, and that kind of ties into what you're doing here. It's like, well, what are you currently doing within your organizational chart in terms of roles and responsibilities, and which of those would you like to potentially hand off to someone or something?
Yeah.
And if you can identify what those things are, it makes it very easy then to create sort of either a specific, AI agent or an individual role for a person and hand it off to them and train them on it and so on and so forth. It just that is a very useful exercise, I think, for businesses in the interest of forecasting where they want to head to.
Yeah, I love that, because really the future belongs to the people that are thinking about the next job. And AI gives you the space, or automating or delegating gives you the space to see the bigger game. It all comes back down to just creating more leverage. And so how can you create more leverage more quickly? But yeah, if you don't know where that future looks like or what that goal looks like, you're going to have a hard time thinking about how much do I need to spend to fill those capacity slots to keep this new hire Billy busy, or whatever, or the next hire.
With all of the tens of thousands of, clients that you guys work with and the experience that you've had over the last, beyond decade, like what are some of the areas that you have seen be over automated?
That's a great question. Yeah, that's a great question. I think when it comes to customer follow-up, there is an amount that's appropriate. And if you don't have all the data, it's hard to figure out how often is enough. And so there's a lot of people out there like, oh, the 11th call, the 7th touch, the 15th, or whatever it is. This is how many times you're going to touch it. The reality is there's a law of diminishing returns. And once you reach a certain point, you get to where you might piss someone off, and it creates too much automation, and you're actually going to start seeing a negative impact of it. There might be 1 in 100th chance that this person will book, but there's probably a 50 in 100 chance they'll leave you a bad review. Being like, oh, they keep following up. It's the 11th time. So I think follow up is definitely important, but it's probably one of the most overutilized, and one that has probably the potential bigger negative impact long term, because you're overly, you're just pushing the boundaries of what it is. Yeah, because you're just thinking about like, okay, the more times I ask, there's 1 out of 1,000 that'll say yes. Yeah, but 500 of 1,000 by the 18th time is going to get ticked off. And it's really easy to put that on an automation and just set it and forget it drip. And then even customers that maybe said yes to you still end up with that drip because you didn't set that thing up correctly. And now all of a sudden they're like, I accepted and you're still bugging me. That's like a double whammy, because then you have potential real loss in actual now revenue, not just future revenue because someone left you a bad review. So stay away from that trap. I see it. And I know it's easy to be like, do as much as you can. but there's a point where you do overdo it. You gotta be careful.
I think part of what we see working well in regard to that specific scenario where you've got like a follow up sequence or whatever it might be, part of that automation can face inwards, like internally. And so what I mean by that is, after you send a proposal, there might be a couple of follow-up messages, and then on the fourth message or something, it might be directed to a team member to actually pick the phone up and have a physical phone call with someone or something along those lines to put more a bit of a human touch to it. Also with excuse me, like job satisfaction surveys, finish a job, then all of a sudden people get sent a text message or an email, like that's fine. But then there's also that whole happy call concept, which I think if done right by a human is far more powerful in having an engaging conversation with someone about how a job went than, than an SMS or a email or something along those lines. Yes, it's time consuming, but then you go back to that question of, okay, well, where is time best spent in the interest of, the ecosystem of this service that we've delivered to the individual? Like, what's making them happier at the end of the day? Getting a happy call from a manager to actually genuinely have a conversation with them, or a text message.
Yeah. And look, I think there's like a level of, I'd rather do some automation than no automation. And then if I had the extra time because I automated all the other stuff, can I focus on these other high value activities? And if that happy call after each job, someone's checking in to make sure, hey, Matt, I just wanted to call and check and make sure my team delivered a 5-star service. Is there anything we could have done better? Or did we earn your 5 stars today or yesterday or when it was, and then you can triage where that goes. But you need to be able to create the time to do that. And so there's definitely like I don't know, I think like a Maslow's hierarchy of needs or something, when you think about like, what are all the things you could be working on and then working your way up. That's an amazing use of time, especially in the early days where each marginal revenue or each marginal review that you earn is worth a lot because you don't have so many. And then once you reach a certain point, there's a diminishing line there as well. So I just would say, always reevaluate what you're doing in your process, because there may be something better you could be spending your time on at a certain point. And so there's no sacred cows, and make sure that culture exists in your company so that you're not the only one thinking about these things or trying to implement them or trying to get your people to do for you.
I think like one of the best things that we see adding value to businesses is, and you touched on this before, and it's super important, but understanding like from a data perspective, like where some of the constraints lie within the various stages of a deliverable or a process or a job or whatever it might be. And what I mean by that is, if you take, for example, a typical sales process and you break that into bite-sized chunks as milestones, if you can identify metrics at the different milestones, it enables you to turn screws at that stage and improve that part of the process. And we see that like transforming conversion rates when you're talking about sales and marketing, because if we can, when we break that down into deliverables and we say, right, stage one here, discovery call, for example, like what is the discovery call to site visit booked ratio? What is that looking like? Okay, great. If we can improve those ratios there, then that compounding effect at the end result of a conversion makes a huge difference. But it's not obvious when you're zooming out and you're just looking at how many jobs you've closed off an ad, for example. Like you've got to consider the whole journey and what's happening throughout the different stages, because it's super common, for people to be like, well, we tried this and it didn't really work and it must have been like the ad quality or they didn't work for us or whatever. But when you dive a little bit deeper, you can really see 99% of the times, like generating the lead is not the problem. It's like the process that's happening in the wake of that lead being generated that's leading to the failure of the close and things like that. So
sure. Yeah. I agree. Yeah. And I think in the marketing space, oftentimes, a lead is not the same lead as you can get across the different channels. And depending on where you get it from, whether it's like paid social or something that's more direct, something might be lower or higher intent. So not all leads are equal in the same way that not all leads are the same like value. So if you're doing, I'm just making this up, paid social advertising on a meta platform on Facebook, you're probably getting really low intent leads, even if you're running like a deal qualifier type of ad creative. And because of that, you might get really low CPL, really low CPC, but the lead quality is really low. the only way to make that thing win and work is if you've got a really good follow-up process in the wake to sift through all the looky-loos and the ones that never would have booked anyways, because there probably are still some high-intent ones, even though it's a low-intent channel overall. But this is where when people are like, where should you spend your time? I think have the marketing agency work on these things for you if they're smart, because as a tradesperson, you shouldn't be worrying about all of those things, but just know that if it's broken down, a good marketing agency will do exactly what Matt just said, which is there's a lot of different screws you can tighten across the way to get you to your full funnel conversion, right? And then ultimately what the dollars the job books in, so you can get your return on ad spend metrics. And if you can get that full picture, you know that if you have to grow a certain percent next week, or if you've got the calendar half full, how much you need to spend to fill it, you can give a more concrete answer on like, okay, how much more are we dropping on marketing, and what percentage of total gross revenue am I spending on marketing spend? Is that in line for our growth path? But I think that's where you have to rely on people that are professionals that do this and think about all these things all day, every day. Is a great example of like, there's probably higher value tasks than you trying to figure all those pieces out, because it is complex, but they're super important.
And I was using that as an example, but of course you could parlay that into anything. I mean, even like take job management for example, like how well has this job been run from soup to nuts in the space of like all the different stages throughout the cycle of this customer's journey, and having the data available to turn screws. Hey, you know what? Like our speed to getting out on site here wasn't fast enough. How can we improve that process? You know what? The guy's appearance or the sentiment for the client when the customer, our technician rocks up hasn't been great. How do we improve that? Like there's little things that you can always improve there if you have the data to make those changes. But like you say, you got to have that data available, and you've got to be willing to dive deep into these different areas and sort of like not just focus on the bigger zoomed out picture, but really get granular into the different stages. It's like the Arnold Schwarzenegger thing, right? Like the 1% improvements. Like if you can make 1% improvements at different stages, it has like a macro compounding effect. So
yeah.
Man, this has been awesome. Is there anything that we haven't covered off on here that you'd like to before we wrap up?
No, I just say, in general, if some of the things that I said, interested you, and if you're like, oh, I do want to learn a little bit more about, what is Housecall Pro working on the AI team members, I would say, go get a demo. There's a free trial of Housecall Pro, but free trial is kind of like going to see a new house without any of the furniture in it. And some people are really good at visualizing, oh, this is where this will be, this will be that. But if you really want to see kind of that house that's built out with all the staging in there, and it looks as if, someone like you lives in there, so like it looks like an HVAC account, go check out a demo of Housecall Pro and see if it might be a right fit for you. Because I think all those data points and things that we've been talking about, you need to have a system in place to be able to measure that. And now more than ever, it's easier to get to. And so you can just go to housecallpro.com, or you can always text me direct if you want a deal. And that's 858-215-1512. I will personally respond. And you just got to drop Matt's name, and I'll be like, oh yeah, I remember that podcast. That was a fun one. We talked all about AI. Let's see what we can do for you.
Unreal. And any chance of Housecall Pro hitting the Asia Pacific market?
We're always reevaluating our options, and we've been growing so fast in the U.S. and Canada, and somewhere in our story will be launching to all English-speaking countries. Just don't know when. So yeah, even Australia. Even though sometimes I have to be like, "What did he just say?" Oh, I gotta pay attention. Like, oh, that accent, man. I wish I had that accent. And yeah, that's great.
Awesome.
Thanks for having me on the show, Matt. I really appreciate it.
Mate, it's been awesome to have you, and it was great to connect. It was good to see those stars aligning. So, mate, it was great to chat. And if you guys out there, listeners, viewers, if you have anything that we've spoken about which appealed to you, let us know. Or if anything that we didn't cover, let us know. I'm sure I can rubber arm Roland to coming back on and answering some more questions. But mate, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And I'll have links to all of the website and everything within the show notes. So head across to the siteshow.com and just type in Roland if you guys are driving or whatever. Otherwise, thank you very much. And that is a wrap.
New Zealand-based home renovation company, 6,593% ROAS. Sydney-based solar company, 2,700% ROAS. Hunter region-based bathroom renovation company, 5,616% ROAS. Melbourne-based building company, 13,182% return on ad spend. Adelaide-based solar company, 2,881% return on ad spend. Guys, the list goes on and on. If you're a trade-based business and you work with projects like roofing, solar, bathroom renovations, kitchen renovations, anything like that, head across to tradie.wiki/pod for podcast. Tradie.wiki/pod for podcast. Book in a conversation. It is game changing.